Hey everyone, so good to be back. So happy you're listening to us. So happy you got caught by the title. Um, Today is going to be about polarity and pleasure and sex, and I have to keep like the order in mind because apparently it's important. Although we keep saying we're going to talk about sex, but we didn't yet. So we said we're going to have to do a whole convo on that. And that's what's happening today. And as we're talking about polarity, I love being in here with a masculine being while I'm a feminine being. And while I took over like the masculine part of, introducing, opening up the space to all of you, you're going to see me today, and I would love to invite you watching me dropping into the feminine compared to the interviews before, because I didn't tell you, Russell, but I think you expected it. You're going to be your pole today, and I'm going to be my pole, and I'm going to be only responding from that pole. So I'm not going to give so much like facts and figures and stuff that I know, but I'm just going to react from my feminine oracle, like from my truth. That's my truth in exactly that moment. What's for those people who don't know polarity yet? For me, it's a game, and I would love to ask you, Russ, if people ask you what is polarity, how do you explain that?
Essentially, polarity is difference, right? And I love what's her name? That beautiful female speaker who wrote States, Esther Perel. Esther Perel says that distance is the gap across which eros can spark. Okay, and so you need polarity. Polarity is difference. It's the difference between you and me, and eros, the sexual desire, now has space from which it can travel from one place to the other. Whereas if you're enmeshed, if you're super connected, there's actually no space, there's actually no difference between you and your sweetheart, for example, across which desire can be built. So polarity is basically increasing that distance so that someone is wanting, someone is doing the wanting, and someone is wanted. Okay, and all that we can play with that polarity, which is increasing difference in a very conscious and artful way, the greater the sexual tension, the greater the turn on, the greater the pleasure. So that's essentially how I think of polarity.
I would love to throw in two words that always come up with polarity, because, whenever I talk about it, people are like immediately drawn to it. Like, this is how polarity works, right? This exchange between the poles all the time, happening all the time. And I feel like people think that it's always got something to do with love and romance, and it can, but it doesn't have to. Like, I love the idea that it's just everywhere. You cannot not be in polarity. It shapes you from the surroundings you grow up in. Like, do you have a more feminine household or a masculine household? Like, is it all about you being able to explore yourself, you coming as you are, you're being welcomed with an open heart? Or is it more about what you do in life, like how good your grades are, how the expectations are? That would be the masculine surrounding. It's like, it's everywhere. It's places, it's feelings, it's and it's relationship. And I would love to maybe I feel like it needs, like Oracle says, it needs an explanation. I'm going to give an explanation. Polarity in places. You just know that when you go to Hawaii, or for the Europeans, you just know that when you're about to go to Italy, that's a very feminine place, right? It's about enjoying yourself. It's about flowing through the days, eating, having a lot of sex, meeting beautiful Italian guys. That's like a very feminine place. Whereas you go to Germany, it's a very structured place. There are rules for everything. You know exactly how fast you're supposed to drive. If you spit a chewing gum on the floor, you're going to pay 10 euros for it if you're seen. So that's like, there is rules, and there's a certain way of presence everywhere, and a certain way of, this is how you do it. And that's like the masculine being, the masculine pole. So you cannot not live polarity, but you can be unconscious of it.
Right. You can be unconscious of it, and you can also use it artfully, playfully, consciously, and to extract the maximum amount of juice and fun and alignment out of your life. And I think that's the art of understanding polarity and using it as a beautiful tool for a wonderful, pleasure-filled, graceful kind of life.
I think if many of you are in a long-term relationship, right? And I think there's two kinds of being in a long-term relationship. The one where you just slowly drift apart, or the one where you radically drift together.
I love that.
And most people are doing this. And we're about to give you some tips. Don't worry about how to do this and not this. But what I think is so important, and where my heart just opens when I hear it, is like, so many people are in relationships and the love doesn't fade away. For many, the love also fades away, which is tragic itself. But if the love stays and the energy, the polarity leaves, there's not going to be any energy in your relationship left. There's not going to be any hunger for the other person, not any attention, not any being drawn to the other, and that's missing. And that's where mistakes happen and bad things happen, because naturally what you wish for, you're going to be confronted with in your world. So you see it in another person, and you're going to think you're a bad person. You want to be unfaithful, you don't love her or him anymore. And that's just not true. It's just that love is something so different than polarity. And the juice is when you combine it, like,
Right. Well, the Greeks talk about numerous different types of love, but two that are relevant here, which you're talking about, are eros, which is the love of desire, that cannot keep my hands off you, want to rip my clothes off you, spark of attraction, and agape, which is like communion. It's like a brother and sisterly kind of love. It's like a familial love. And then I think there's another one which is like a kind of a universal love for all things. But what you're pointing to, I think, is that eros relationships start with a lot of eros, a lot of sexual charge, and then it seems to kind of dissipate or turn into agape, which is like we're housemates and we're like a brother, sister, or we definitely support each other and we love and care for each other, but that spark and that lust almost is missing. And then the question becomes, how do we restore that polarity which was there at the start, where it's like, I cannot wait to see you.
Good.
And so part of what I've seen, as Esther Perel is saying, is that space is needed so that eros can have distance to jump. She did this wonderful survey of like, when do people find their partners the most attractive? Okay, and this is a study of long-term relationships, and the answer was, unsurprisingly, not when they wake up next to them with their bed breath, and not when they see them come home from work at the same time every day. They were most attracted to their long-term partners when they saw them across the room at a party talking to other people, for example, or when they saw them on stage, or when they saw them returning after a period of time away. Okay, this is the spark, that you can see your partner in a different light, or almost as a different person from across the room, or doing their thing, but not necessarily acknowledging you. They're just in their radiance, or they've been away such that you start to miss them. This is the spark. Being together all the time tends to create that familiar brother-sister housemate kind of relationship, which is also beautiful, but there's much less polarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some alarms going on in my head when you say like you need the distance, because everybody knows I'm anxiously attached, and I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
I know we need distance, like, but not too much, right?
But
But you're gonna let me know when you're back.
yes. So there's a real art to this. And when we're talking about pleasure and we're talking about sex, who was it? I was studying Nicole Daydon, and she said that every lie is like a layer of skin over your clitoris. Okay. So everything that you can't find a way to share or to reveal to your partner is going to reduce the polarity and increase the kind of walls between you, decrease the intimacy. So in a long-term, it's very easy in a longer-term relationship. And first of all, full disclaimer, I'm not an expert in long-term relationships. I've definitely got a rather rocky history, which we may or may not go into. But having said that, I've worked with a little.
It doesn't work, so.
It's what?
You know how it doesn't work, like that's knowledge.
Exactly. I've got lots of good experiences about how these things don't work. And I've also quizzed and observed a lot of my friends in long-term relationships. So I'm going to simply talk from my experience and what I've seen work, what I've seen hasn't worked. So where was I going? In longer-term relationships, what I've noticed, and this is from my own experience, that nature's reward for you being vulnerable and sharing the things that you're a little bit ashamed about or you're worried that your partner won't accept, but sharing them anyway. Nature's reward for being vulnerable is hot, awesome, connected, just like the first time sex. And so and the anxious person often plays a really important role. I want to give a big shout out to all the anxious people out there, or people who are anxious in relationships, because you guys are the ones that are more focused on the relationship. You guys are probably the first ones to reveal how you're feeling. And so begin that process of intimate, vulnerable sharing. And you just love being in connection. And so I want to kind of point out the superpowers and the necessity and the deep value that being anxious in a relationship brings. Because as I said, for polarity, someone has to be wanted and someone has to do the wanting. Otherwise, we may as well pack our bags and go home. And so that the light side of the anxious attached is that you're the one that does the wanting. Okay. You're always seeking to close that gap, and someone has to play that role. When we can recognize the gifts of avoidance and attachment, they simply become the placeholders for polarity and distance in the relationship. I was reading a book on some Jungian psychology and just had this wonderful moment of reading that, where this therapist was really celebrating these aspects which we are, like, anyone who's read attachment theory, suddenly the world becomes divided into you're anxiously attached and you're avoidant attached, and we kind of pathologize ourselves or pathologize the other or that behavior.
Yeah, I have a whole book written on that called Red Flags.
You wrote the book?
Yeah. No, I wrote it for myself, just to remember, when I'm consciously swiping.
God, these are all your red flags. Okay. And that's a classic anxious thing to do, is like hyper vigilant, super on the lookout for, this whole meme of red flags, which has come up in the last couple of years, along hand in hand with the rise of trauma awareness, is also being driven by anxiously attached people who are now finding a voice. Okay. And I think it's fantastic. It's really, really good, because it's bringing awareness to these things. And we have to be careful that we are using red flags as a way to restore and return ourselves to secure and safe attachment. Otherwise, you just keep noticing red flags, and the whole world becomes, an unsafe place. Mm-hmm. This is there's kind of a little bit of a thing around boundaries. Boundaries are there not to keep people out, but to foster the right amount of connection where you can feel safe to express. That's the ideal use of a boundary.
Now you also put boundaries into the room. Okay, I need a bit more feeling and a bit less facts, because that's no, I'm like, I stopped listening like at least a minute ago, when I was like, I'm still caught up in your, like, my heart is still caught up in the anxious people are the ones who do the wanting. Because I think one thing that's the most healing for me, and that's why I can enjoy it most, is when the avoidant part finds his way or her way into the wanting. And I can lay back and I can receive what I'm giving from an unhealthy background. So when the other person is doing their work and realizing that this is actually the other pole, like I'm switching into the other pole, I'm opening my heart for it, and I'm finding my interest in wanting my partner, in wanting my romantic partner, my whatever. Yes, I'm gonna relax, like I'm gonna breathe, and I can just drop into it. I won't be relaxed, I won't be surrendering when I'm in that pole that I come from, because this is so full of toxic behavior, this is so full of red flags, this is so full of being prepared for the moment he's gonna draw back, and being prepared for the pain. And I can do my shit work on, I'm opening up to the pain, I'm gonna surrender to the pain. And I can also choose to not, like, to be okay with not being okay to do the wanting part all the time, because that's not a good place for me to be in. It's a good place to play with. It's a good place to come back to when I've enjoyed the other pole. It's like, I feel like we come from a certain pole is our home in everything.
Right. Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of shadow work, and I found that in people, it's so interesting how we feel home in a certain, like in the light or in the dark. It's like we come from one of these places and bring with us a certain amount of very unhealthy skills that we are very typical for the light pole or the shadow pole, and wandering to the middle, like, naturally at first when we stop doing something, we're going to drop into the opposite. It's like we're setting boundaries, right? Coming from no boundaries to like anger boundaries for everyone. It's like you drop into the opposite and everything explodes, like, and then you slowly start to make your way to the balance, like to the middle again, where you can play, where you are free to choose. I'm choosing the avoidant part, I'm choosing the anxious part, I'm choosing to be the one. I'm choosing the one to be the one that's being wanted. Oh my God, I just love your language.
It's a lot of fun when you can do that. I'll give you a couple of thoughts. First of all, if I track back, you're talking about, you feel like when you're anxious and you're the one who's doing the wanting, that you can relax when you feel your partner wanting you.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I got from that. And so I think the practice for the anxious pole in the relationship, the one who's more anxious in that moment, is not necessarily to track for your partner wanting you, but to track for all the ways you can receive everything that they're giving you. Okay. So then the focus becomes more on you receiving rather than tracking for, are they still giving? Because if your hypervigilance is on, you're also going to be oversensitized to, they might leave at any moment.
It's never going to be enough. Like, he can't. It's never going to be enough. He's never going to fill my cup to the point where I think I'm going to be happy. That's not his job. Yeah, and he can't do it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's right. And that's also a classic example of anxious, the anxious trauma wound, which is like, it's never enough. There's never enough, because the attention is on the outside and trying to get what we need from the outside, as opposed to receiving in our body, in our nervous system, all the sensations that are already there and coming in. Because that will. I'm also very anxious. I've been gifted with being both very avoidant and very anxious, and I've had this experience a number of times where I will be like lying in bed with a partner or a lover, and they will get up and go to the toilet or whatever they do, and I will be lying there alone, and just my whole nervous system's on fire because I'm just feeling so abandoned. Okay. And it doesn't matter logically what I tell myself. It's like just going to the toilet, they're coming back. My experience viscerally is I have been abandoned, and I have to return to myself and to kind of feel my body under the covers, receive the pleasure that is in that moment, so that I can meet that part that is like me, wanting to be held.
And that's where the beauty of authentic expression or vulnerability comes in, right? If you choose to be intimate with people of this level of consciousness, you can't just let them know what's happening in you, and then it's gonna get less. Like if it's allowed to be there, and the other person doesn't take the shoe and doesn't feel blamed by you, but just says, "Wow, that's what's happening in you." That's so interesting. That must be intense for you. Oh, that's such a beauty in being witnessed in this pain, because then this is like, it's such like the mastery of co-regulation. It's right there, and
it's incredible. I was so blessed recently to have a partner with whom I could share these very vulnerable parts. You know, my avoidant part, which wants to kind of pull me away. I have a lot of shame around that part, and then to be able to voice that into the field of the relationship and have that be held and be welcomed was just life-changing for me, to be able to kind of share these things, because I think often we have a lot of shame around these parts of us. You know, as an anxious person, you probably feel really uncomfortable feeling like you want the person or you want more from them. That can be a very uncomfortable part to reveal, and avoidants tend to put on a brave face because we tend to not display those emotions so much. But that's also a way of shielding ourselves from the vulnerability of saying, you know, I'm struggling a bit too, and this is the way that I cope, is by taking space. But we don't like to admit that there's a struggle inside which is drawing us away.
And it falls into the opposite, right? Just like you say, your so much is just coming up. It's so good. Like I start coughing, that's always a good sign. When you say I'm the avoidant, like, and then at some point I start to be anxious, that's exactly what happens, right? In the end, we all are just scared as fuck. Don't really come near me. Don't really see me. Like, I want to be seen by you, but not 100%. Like, give me 80 or I'm gonna run. And I'm like the master of it, where you just totally don't make sense anymore, where stuff that you like discussed and communicated in hours and hours a week ago is just doesn't seem to make sense anymore, because you absolutely don't want him to move in. Like, really, please don't. I need my space. I need my whole house. You know, whereas the week before you said, okay, why don't we just take it one step further, because that's like a wish of mine. And then you start to panic and please don't move in. And if yes, and there's been so much energy in talking about it, so you're not sharing what's actually true in you, because you tell yourself you got to stick to what you said, right? This is so masculine. Oh my God. Like, you said A, you need to say, if you said A, you need to say B, and you need to do C too, because you said so, because it took so much energy to work this out, right? Oh, it's not going to be okay. And I'm going to be the worst person and the meanest person. And I'm going to kick them out. Like, sooner or later, I'm going to make you leave because I'm so fucking scared of you. Yeah. So It's polarity, right?
the anxious, totally, the anxious avoidant dance, which when we can come into secure connection with these parts, okay, this is my take on attachment theory, we can use them to create polarity. You know, sometimes when I'm secure in my relationship, especially with my friendships, I will create drama because it creates polarity, right? This is like when you tease, and we can say drama is, you know, teasing people or drawing things out, or, you know, bantering, having fun, you know.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's creating a little bit of
Oh,
drama because it's tension, and we can tease each other, we can bring these things out, but we know that there's a base of love and trust and affection, and that's also what we can bring to our intimate relationships to kind of create that sense of polarity.
yeah, and coming like bridging over to pleasure. I mean, creating drama is pleasure, right? What else would it be? Like it's feeling intensity of life. Like if you
Right.
have a life full of drama, like I do, like, you know, dying a few times and then having all the weirdest shit happening to you and you just
Right.
don't know, then apparently you love intensity. And we need to find a way to find pleasure in it. And
100%.
from the point of I do that regularly. Whenever someone's coming near me, I'm going to create some sort of drama, and I'm going to find a reason to say, no, this is really not working for me. You're really wrong. Like, you know, I'm the reflected person, I'm the coach, so something's really wrong with you and you're not putting that shit on me, you know. That's me. Oh my god. Not just you. And and what I do in friendships and also in dating, is that whenever something like that happens, I won't notice in the minute. I don't have a chance. Mostly, if you have an emotional authority in human design, you're not going to realize that this is not the truth. But coming back to it like a few hours later, you're going to see, oh, oops, that smells like me. Like, I could, like, that's like my subtitle of my life, and I did it again. And what I can do, like that's like the super skill for me, is like stopping myself in the moment, stepping back, saying something like, look what I did. Like being a child, like being 5 years old, stepping back and being so proud of what I just built up. Look what I did.
Right. I made this.
You had this. Yes, I made this. How awesome is this? Like, look how I moved you. Look how I moved myself. Look how I made stuff explode. Oh my God, look what I did here. Let's just all draw back and meet again in an hour and maybe talk about it.
Right. So
Yeah.
you're talking about this propensity for intensity, shall we say, this desire and this need. And look, that also comes with, like, if you're a highly sensitive person or you're an empath, then you feel things intensely. And I think the challenge for you guys, and probably women in general when compared to men, is it's a two-edged sword. You feel the anxiety more intensely. You also feel the pleasure more intensely. And so, yeah, the practice, as you said, is to be able to feel the pleasure in the intensity. It's like Fritz Perls says, the only difference between anxiety and excitement is the breath. You know, so the very sensations that you call anxiety, when you can bring your awareness to them, can be turned into pleasure or excitement. And that's very...
Can you put that sentence into the field again so I can soak it up?
Yeah.
The only difference
between anxiety and excitement is the breath.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling frustrated, I mean, this is pure existential kink now. When you're feeling annoyed, if you can breathe into that and notice the sensations in the body, and bring awareness and loving awareness to that, suddenly it turns into pleasure. It's like, oh, I'm really getting off on this, aren't I? There's a lot of sensation moving through. I must be really excited. And then if you want to get kinky with it, you start telling yourself, oh, you're such a dirty, nasty bitch for wanting to turn yourself on this way. You know, look at you creating all this drama just so you can get a kick out of it.
right. And this is our shadow side.
Yeah.
And from Karen Elliott's work, when you can work with that and just tell yourself, oh, you're such a nasty, naughty girl for turning yourself on this way, these places which we try and push away suddenly have a beautiful place to express within the playground of our heart, and everything changes.
Yeah. And you know what I found, like in my last container, I already talked about the light pole and the shadow pole. People who come from the shadow pole, like they immediately build the bridge to finding the pleasure in it, to like talking, like they have this humorous approach that we're using too right here. People coming from the light pole do actually first get sad when they realize that, in order, like in terms of what am I doing to myself. Like, I didn't realize I was doing this to myself. Like, I didn't realize my subconscious is working like this. And what did I do to myself, and what did I do to other people? It's like so I love it because it makes so much sense. And existential kink, I think, is going to work for the shadow pole right away. Like, try to realize, oh wow, how am I self-pleasuring myself again by my car not starting? Like, how alive does it make me feel to have to call, you know, those people who come by and repair my car and make it start, and am I gonna be on time for work? And it's so much excitement going on, like, is this gonna work? I can have myself rescued by men. Like, that's always my thing, you know, like, I have to call someone and they can rescue me, and I can, you know, admire them. And, you know, most of the time they're also hot. Like, I do find pleasure in creating this.
Right, perfect.
Yes, perfect.
Nothing wrong with a little drama, especially when we do it consciously and we can take pleasure from it. And, you know, obviously no one else gets hurt. Or if they do, then it's consensual. Look, drama and tension is baked into our human DNA. You know, all of our myths and stories and all of the great love stories are kind of boy meets girl, girl meets boy, and there's something in the way. It's never like boy meets girl and then they get married and live happily ever after. No, it's like boy meets girl who's in the wrong tribe or the wrong clan, or boy gets close to girl, girl rejects him, boy goes to another girl, girl, blah, 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 blah. Then they finally get together. We love drama, and I want to say that drama is necessary and good and beautiful and has a place.
You know that actually, like, I watched Titanic when I was 10, you know, because I'm like young. So I was 10 when it came out, and I saw those girls like standing in the kids toy shop with this I don't know the word, but it's like a clock that's playing the melody of Titanic, and they were standing in front of it like teenage girls, and they were crying, like, and I was like, what's happening? Like, I gotta know what's happening. And I watched that movie when I was 10, and it was something inside of me decided that this is love. Like, this amount of drama, that's true love, right? My brain today goes like, if she had just made a bit of space, you know, there are like 20 possibilities how he could have fit on that fucking drawer as well. Like, she could just have made a bit of space, but it doesn't. I can show you where in my past relationships these moments happened.
Right.
Exactly this.
Right.
So this is how I create love in my life. Dramatic, death, no possibility. And in the end, I'm gonna be free. I'm gonna be able to develop. I'm gonna be able to live my life, live my power alone. That's me, basically. And realizing that what's imprinted in your subconscious, what love is, it's gonna make you realize, and then you can start enjoying it, like seeing how what a mighty person you are, creating the story again and again.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Good. I'm glad you kind of closed that loop, because it's really kind of important to understand, as you said, how you coded love in the very first place, which in your case was a lot of intensity and people crying, and then to have more ability to go, okay, going forward as an adult, do I want to choose this? Do I still want to choose this? Do I want to try something different? Yeah. And no judgment either way, but it becomes more of a conscious choice, which is the process of waking up.
And it's still pleasure. It's still always pleasure realizing, oh, look, I know exactly if I'm going to swipe that guy right. It's going to be dramatic.
Same. I still watch myself. Yeah. Go, do some of these patterns and go, I know exactly where this goes. And I'm very much humbled by myself. Of like, I know where this goes. It doesn't end well. And I just kind of watch myself go and do it anyway. And I'm like, clearly there's a lot more work to be done. And that's okay as well.
Yes, just find a way to enjoy it. It's fucking 95% of your actions every day. So start enjoying it. Stop trying to fix yourself all the time with everything. And mostly don't make, like, I call it casual. No, casual is causal. Is that a word?
Causal. Yep.
Causal chains. Yes, saying like a belief sentence on this part. This is why I'm never gonna make it to there. Like I'm so broken and I need to fix myself to this degree before I can. That's how I call this. And we're full of that, right? So stop it. You don't need to be fixed up to a certain level so you can have a fulfilling relationship. No.
Always in my experience, we're always a work in progress. And there's something to be celebrated about that and something to be humbled by that as well. But we're always on a continuum from one place and heading to another. And that heading to another place, the desire that we have to be that person is polarity. It's that desire. And that's also what you want to cultivate in yourself, because as long as you're desiring something, you're still living. And it's a powerful force to be celebrated. And then with that desire comes opportunities for pleasure. Oh, I got one step closer, or I had that thing, or I enjoyed that thing. How much can you receive that as well?
Yeah. And how much can you find pleasure, not just in things that you define as pleasure. Like I can find pleasure. That's why I'm doing it all the time. Like I find pleasure in touching my hair all the time. It's like I have to wash it all the time because I'm doing it all, but I find it's like it connects me to me. Like I feel myself when I do it. Yeah. I have clients in my calls that I encourage to constantly just touch their own skin because
Beautiful.
It keeps them rooted in themselves. That's pleasure. You can find pleasure in drinking a glass of water. I know it's also, it's good for your body, blah, 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 but you can find pleasure. You can taste the 2% taste of water. Like find pleasure in what you're doing right now, in sitting upright and sitting like this. Find pleasure in whatever you're doing, and it is everywhere. That's something that you train.
Yeah, yes, totally. One of my friends who was teaching jade egg, she's taught jade egg practices to members of the UN and members of the Denmark, some kind of high up organization in Denmark. She's like the OG of the jade egg practice, been doing it for years. And I remember talking with her, and she said, the day that I learned that I could create my own orgasms was the day that I didn't need men to get me off. Mm. And it changed her whole relationship with men and sex. Obviously she still enjoys men, but and gets a lot of pleasure from that, but she is now in charge of her own pleasure. She doesn't need the man to be a certain way or to do a certain thing, because she's cultivated that ability in herself, which I think is what you're doing with your clients by starting with touch yourself, find pleasure in the drinking of water, practice those pathways until, I think women are insanely orgasmic, and you have so many feeling centers that it's a way of nourishing yourself.
Yes, 8 1,000 nerve endings in your clit. Like, go fucking use it. It's not nothing. It's not meant for birthing children. Like, it's not there for breathing or for pumping blood. No, it's there for pleasure. You are a pleasurable being. So please go and use it. Oh my God. Yeah, such a big thing.
We're definitely built for pleasure.
Yeah, sorry for that.
So you went somewhere and I jumped in. Some space for you to reconnect to that thought.
Yeah. I have like 3 pathways I would love to go down, but I have to decide for one. How did you experience the women you were with deepening their pleasure in life, also in sex, not just in life, through this work, like through the work of connecting to yourself, through the work of finding a deeper belonging in yourself? Because you just said she also finds, like the person you were talking about, like your friend, she also found pleasure in having given to her by men. How does that change when you start? Because it kind of feels like, you could interpret it as coming back to I don't need anyone. Like I'm gonna do it myself, which in the end is a dead end itself. So give me your thoughts on that. I'm sorry, I'm like.
It's all right. A couple of things. I'll answer the first question first. Like how do the women that I work with deepen their sense of pleasure? And it's a really good question. Probably the easiest way to answer that is, as I quoted earlier, every lie that you tell is a layer of skin over your clitoris. And so that can be shifted also to any shame that people feel about feeling pleasure, or any of the walls that they have erected to shield themselves from pleasure. It might be dirty, or I need to be a good girl, or pleasure can only occur, whatever kind of beliefs that we have, that we built up around feeling pleasure and enjoying sex. As we release those, as we integrate them, the pleasure naturally arises. So one of my clients had this constriction in her throat as we were working around having her enjoy sex more. And as she felt into, and we just held a space for this feeling in her throat just to be there without needing to change or be any different. And then she started making a sound from that place. And because that part was no longer repressed or made bad, but suddenly could speak, she kind of spontaneously went into a long sound orgasm and had all this pleasure just open up through her body because those pathways are already there. And so once we make a space for all of these feelings, that was essentially a great example of how you of turning anxiety into pleasure. Of like, once we allowed this part to be here, it naturally magnified into like this whole body orgasm that she just, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let you go and check in about 20 minutes. And she was allowed to then have her own experience of that as well, knowing that I was also there, available to create more safety if she needed it. So I just love this quote by Rumi, who said, your task is not to seek for love, it's merely to find the barriers you put up and to embrace them.
Okay, love, so, coming back to you. How did this make you feel? Like, how did this make your masculine feel? Like, I opened spaces for women to find this much healing just by opening the fucking space. What does that do to you? Like,
what does it do to me? Oh, I'm like super chuffed. Like it's what does it do to me as a masculine? It just validates and reminds me that here I am holding space in a way which is allowing the feminine to express. And so, yeah, I'm very much in my masculine. I'm very much in that solid space of allowing the woman, allowing the feminine to just be and express however it wants and know that it will be loved by me.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
and this is exactly the space where we open up, right? Everyone is always talking about surrendering, blah, blah. You don't make a conscious choice to surrender. It's happened. If the space is created by someone who's
Yes.
going to hold it, it's going to happen naturally. And then it is going to feel good. I'm having it not feeling good so many times with people where I think I should be surrendering and I'm not going to enjoy myself. And if I'm not going to enjoy myself, he's not going to enjoy himself. So I should try to surrender, but the space is not being held. So I have to go back into that pole, like the masculine pole. I'm going to hold the space. I'm going to make sure he's going to enjoy himself. That's a dead end. But this has been my reality for like 10 years, right? So I'm really good at that. And I'm going to make you enjoy yourself, which is, which was like, it was the wrong way around. So,
Right.
so it's such a blessing and such a gift to have someone like you, be it in a therapeutic space or be it in a romantic space, blah, 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 whatever, where this just happens. This is the magical moment. Like, this is the blessing. You can't practice surrendering from a conscious thought to, oh, it would be so nice to let go of the control now. You as a feminine being, you would let go of the control if the space was being held.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. I would agree that once you sense safety, then you will naturally kind of open into this. Because otherwise, if it's no safety, it's kind of a bad idea to surrender. Your inbuilt safety mechanism won't let you do that. So attuning to a man who is attuned to you and has had and done enough of that work, will then your sexuality and your pleasure will also naturally blossom.
I don't think I'm at a point where I don't think he has to do the work. I find this moment of surrendering in everyday life all the fucking time since I've been tuning in my focus on these moments where somebody's just, seeing that I'm struggling and creating the space, by just fixing my car, or, my neighbor showing up saying, I heard you've had the booster. Are you okay? Like, do you need anything? Those are the moments where I just drop into I can just feel and be somebody's got the space and he's not doing the work, like, Right. And
I guess I'm talking more about as someone who you're choosing as a lover or a partner.
Yeah, absolutely. So agree with you. And the question, what are you saying yes to? Because if you're saying yes to someone who's not creating the space, you're going to try to teach them how to create the space. And that's not good. It's not good. So you're going to blame him and you're going to tell yourself you should be okay with, and he's trying. And you don't have to have it the hard way. You don't.
Yeah. Don't do it the hard way. That's just going to be hard.
Yeah. How when we go to or when we come back to having, let's combine polarity and sex, because pleasure is apparent when you combine polarity and sex.
Right. I love it.
You're not gonna be able to shut that out. Did you already have a moment where you met someone, like you saw someone and you knew immediately where this was going? And from that very second, you were so turned on by your knowledge of this is going to work and it's going to be incredible and I'm going to enjoy this so much that it was so easy. Did you have that moment already?
Yeah, totally. I think most of those interactions, there's a knowing that this will, of where this will go. In fact, it's kind of like it's just I'm not sure how to kind of create that situation, but my radar is very attuned. I think most people is just like, you can meet someone at a party and just go, yeah, this is gonna happen. Sometimes this is the other thing I say, like, you know, that feeling you have when you see someone across a crowded room and your heart starts pounding, you get the tingles, maybe a little bit of flushing. That feeling is common sense leaving your body. Okay, sometimes it can be also, I have to be careful here. For me personally now, I've marked this as, oh, there is some karma here that needs to be played out. And I still have a choice as to, do I want to engage in that or not? Because my experience has been that when I jump into something swiftly with somebody, actually I was going to say, when I jump into something swiftly with somebody, it ends fairly swiftly. But I'm just going to retract any kind of understandings I have of this, because my knowledge keeps on growing. When I sense somebody and I have that sense of attraction, it's almost like I can relax. You know, I also know I don't have to pursue her. I don't have to play any games. There's a karma here in the field that will draw us together, and that's a really nice place to be as well when I sense that.
That's
yeah, yeah. I'm not anxious at all. I'm just kind of like, I just get to be myself because I'm trusting in a connection which is actually much greater than me to draw us together.
How long can you stay in that trust?
How long can I stay in that trust? A long time, actually, a long time. I've met people on the opposite side of the world and felt that feeling and just thought, we're going to spend some time together. And it may be years until our paths cross again, but that connection and feeling is there. So for me, I'm very relaxed about it.
Oh, give me some of that. Put it in a box and send it to me, because I have this trust as well, but it interferes with my book of red flags and my brain makes sense. So yeah, it's always a long way to go. Yeah. People who, because I need to bring in more masculine energy. This is real. It's annoying me. Like I'm lost in my thoughts here and my feelings there. And I love the feminine, but it's exhausting. It's so exhausting.
You're doing great, Svenny. You're doing great. I know there's I feel like one more question that you kind of want to pop out, and we'll find it together.
Yes, I have it. I can put my finger on it. I know it. There's so many people coming my way saying I've been, because you know, usually people in the dating process come by and say, okay, you know, you're doing the work about core gifts, you're doing the shadow work, like I want to have my conscious man. And yeah, okay, let's talk about that. Maybe let's talk about entitlement, you know. These people are the ones. And then there's so many people in my containers who are in a relationship and who start doing the polarity work. And as we know, polarities are very vulnerable in a good way of, if you start doing something else, the whole system's going to change. The whole energy is going to shift, and it doesn't have to be much. If you just stop blaming him, just for once, if you just start appreciating him for holding the door open for you, it's all gonna change. So, and it's mostly, this is with long-term relationship, like this is where the magic happens. This is where you light up the spark again that's been between you. And also this is, I found, what's my camera doing? Okay. I found this to be such a great cure also for relationships where they've been building blocks on top of blocks on top of blocks throughout the years, just, you know, existing next to each other. It doesn't matter how big these blocks are. If you start doing the energetics and polarity work, you're just gonna go around them. They can still be there, but they don't have to be removed before you do these 5 awesome things that we're gonna collect for you now. So
Right.
5 tips for people in long-term relationships who want to have the fire back. What should they do?
Great question. I have no idea, but I can come up with a few. No. I've got some great things.
Number 1.
First of all, creating okay. Creating some space for each of you to come into connection with yourselves as yourselves. Okay, especially if you've been enmeshed, especially if you've grown habits and routine together, and especially if you're bringing up a little one or you have responsibilities where you are basically constantly giving out your energy to a child or to a job or to both or to a family. Okay, having some space to reconnect to yourself, nourish yourself, reconnect back to your own sources of pleasure from the inside. Basically, that's also going to have the dual effect of your partner's probably going to miss you a little bit. Oh, so-and-so is not around to do all the things that they normally do. They're not here to cuddle me or to listen to me or to affirm me. I'm starting to miss them now. Okay, and that allows that gap for Eros to jump across. Okay, so that's the first one.
I'm going to do the second one. No, I'm going to do the second one.
You're going to do that? Okay, you can do the second one. I'll do the third one then. I thought I had to do them all myself. This is great.
Yes, you can think about the third one, but I'm going to do the second one, which is totally like advice for the girls.
Mm-hmm.
Stop gaslighting yourself and what you're feeling. Come back to the truth of your feeling of this exact moment. Like, realize something's happening outside of you, what's happening inside of you, and don't immediately switch to how can I find a way to be okay with it. Like, don't be so sensitive, like, oh yeah, he's doing it again. Like, don't gaslight yourself. Find back to the feeling, what's underneath it. Like, that hurts. Or, oh, I would so love his attention right now, his presence right now. Find the feeling that you've been putting stuff on top for maybe years. What's the real truth under it? Get the feeling, like, undig it. What's your wish, your desire that's lying underneath all the gaslighting yourself, all the try to be okay with it in order to keep the peace, in order to keep the harmony, because that's just how it is, that's just how he is, or you shouldn't be asking for more. What's the desire under it? You don't necessarily have to express it. That's gonna come naturally at some point. You don't have to find a way of good communication yet, but just start feeling.
Not until my tip, at any rate.
Just start feeling, what's my truth in this second right now, and then breathe. That's the only thing you need to do. Okay, that was number 2.
I love it. Yep. I love it. Get in touch with the desire beneath the feeling. Beautiful. And then communication is sexy. So yeah, the third tip would be like, every time that I've shared something that's vulnerable for me, including a desire that is vulnerable for me, I mean, it's edgy. I can even feel it kind of being edgy now just at the memory of it. But when I do that and it's received by my partner and welcomed and held, it just is like a massive explosion of trust and turn on. And yes, the more you can kind of lean into sharing what is deeply important and vulnerable for you, essentially vulnerable, that, as I said, the more you can do that, sex becomes like first time best ever sex all over again. And it's just marvelous. It's nature's reward for you being emotionally intelligent and vulnerable.
Yeah. 2 more to go. I have number 4.
Great.
Start worshiping him for everything he does. Realize when you're not doing it because of you don't want to be his mom, because that's like where the heart closes and where you start to, nag about everything that he's doing, because suddenly you're his mom. Start appreciating when he's doing something for you, even though he might have been doing that for 10 years. He's always wanting to do it to make you happy. He's not doing it because you're expecting it, even though you're telling yourself he's just doing it in order to keep the harmony, and he's just so annoyed doing it. Underneath, he always wants to make you happy. In all of the things he's doing for you and with you, there has been the motivation, and let it be like 5 years ago, there's been the motivation underneath it to make you happy and nothing else. So find a way to meet him at this point where he's just trying to make you happy, and just for the sake of it, ignore what he's doing wrong, ignore how he's not meeting him, and find the moments where he is meeting him and express it. By worshiping, I really mean that you at some point arrive at, screaming yippee when he's bringing a coffee to your bed. Like, that's because that's not too much. That's not too much. Like, because that's what's happening in me, right? I'm lying in bed. He's going to get up to get a coffee for me, and that just makes me so happy. Not because I couldn't have done it myself, but because he did it to make me happy, and it worked out. And I know that if I let him share this feeling of me being so happy about it, because I love coffee in bed, come on. If I just express it and make it bigger than it is, nobody's going to get hurt by making it bigger than it is. He's just going to be so happy. It's going to be such a funny moment. Like, we both know this is exaggerated, and we enjoy it. We find pleasure in the play of polarity.
Right. I love that. And that's a little bit of drama, right? But that's coming from a secure attachment place. And yeah, I love that. Worshipping, appreciating a man. Every time you let a man win, like, he gets a shot of testosterone. Like, even if he like overtakes a car while he's driving or does something that's a little bit, he gets a shot of testosterone. So you can actually influence his neurochemistry by worshiping him, and he will become more masculine just through your worship of him. So yeah.
And also things like driving the car. When you're used to that, he's driving and you feel safe when he's driving, just let him know. Nobody's going to get hurt by you appreciating him, unless you're stumbling into the, he shouldn't be wanting that. Like, he's not a little boy and I'm not this mom. Like, that stops you. That stops the energy right away. It goes out. It's a dead end. Nobody's getting hurt by you praising him. Nobody.
Yeah. Yep. Beautiful. I love that. And then the final tip. Yes. Nobody in the history of ever said that relationships were easy. So cut yourself some slack, cut your partner some slack, and be prepared to practice these things, and be prepared for them to be awkward and a little clunky at the start, but then be prepared for them to become natural over time, and to set a new foundation and a new level for your relationship as well. So as you learn these things, as you apply them, give yourself the leeway to have it go a little clunky, but then it will go smoother over time. And it's necessary so that your relationship stays alive, as opposed to just kind of fading into a background of routine and patterns and becoming housemates.
It doesn't just stay alive, it fucking goes through the roof, like into depths and highs and lows that you've never known before. Because this is energy. It's just energy. And that's what I love about it. Like, my masculine loves this about polarity. It's so logical. There's such a huge logic between everything that's happening. Like, that's kind of micromanaging in a way, but I realize why he's doing something. I realize why I'm doing something. Like, I understand. And that just helps me to find good ways to be with myself to forgive myself, to forgive him, to see what's really happening, to go on, one level up and see, okay, what's really happening here. Do I choose my drama because I can, because I love my drama? Or is it maybe better to not choose it right now because there's too much at stake, And that's freedom, right? That's where you actually have the choice to create your relationships. You're not the victim. You get out of the drama triangle. Everything's just working out. Which, for people who don't have a plan, I think we're doing pretty well.
Right. We're doing great. Cool.
Maybe we're just gonna do a container like next year for people in the dating process, because that's what we know, right? We know
exactly. That sounds great. No, we should definitely do that. We should definitely, because there's a lot of stuff here that I know you and I could both share much more deeply on. And okay, so there's a little teaser session, and let's invite some people in next year. It'd be great. Cool.
My feminine has one last question for you. In what way does it move you to talk about these things, like to dive into these things? How does it move you? How does it move your feminine?
How does it move my feminine?
Yes.
How does it move my feminine? I gotta feel into that. It gives me a sense of joy. It gives me a sense of, it brings out my best self. I'm effortlessly more alive and engaged and enlivened. And I just like myself more when I'm in these places where I can, recognize, I have so much to share. I have so much to offer. And I want to keep holding this place for people to start loving more of themselves. And it just lights me up. It's very pleasurable.
Yeah.
So I thank you for the opportunity to kind of be here again and to talk and to share and to connect with your audience. And absolute delight.
I love it so much. And it's not just my audience, it's also your audience. So it's kind of
my audience as well. Hi guys.
Each other.
So I'm very conscious of making this really relevant to the women who are under your care as well.
Yeah, and that's such a gift, seriously, because it's such a difference for them to hear it from a masculine being than only hearing it from me explaining how the guys work. Because I also offer them, if you're like in the dating process and something strange is happening and you don't understand, just send me a DM and I'm gonna help you to understand what's happening. Right. And there's so much need of why does this happen to me all the time? Why does he do that? Why do I do that? Like, I don't understand what's happening. And there's a logic behind everything that's happening, and it's on an energetic level and a subconscious level. And those are the two that, I'm diving into the next one. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving your time. I wanted to say one more. Exactly. I'm going to mention it again. I know you know it, but I'm going to mention it again. Russel's giving away, like he's offering free for, how do you call it? Like
quantum hypnotherapy. That's my name.
I know that, but how do you call it? Where you meet up and when you do some kind of, diving into your work and deciding if that's something for you. How's that called?
A free session. It's a session.
Somebody shoot me. Okay, he's giving away free sessions. If you haven't booked one, oh my God, why? What's wrong with you? Why did you miss out on that? Like, how scared can you be of leading a healthy relationship? So you know where to find him, you know where to find his Instagram, you know where to find his Facebook page, you know how to reach out. Go fucking do it. It's a good idea.
It's a pleasure to see you. Yeah.
And we will definitely meet. Like, are we going to meet again this year? Like, we could.
I don't see why not. We'll chat behind the scenes and come up with something. See what people say and what they need, and we'll respond to that. It'll be great.
Maybe they don't like us.
I think they love us. We're very lovable. We're very, very lovable.
We're lovable. It's so lovable. Oh, okay. Have a great day. You have a great day. Everyone have a great day. Have a great December. Have a great pre-Christmas time. Enjoy yourselves. Calm down. Breathe. Enjoy the snow if you have some. And enjoy the sun if you have some. Wherever you are. Have a good time.
All right. Ciao, Svenja.
Bye,
Lovely
bye,
to see
bye.
you. Thanks very much for listening. Lots of love.